Hello. So in this video, we're going to discuss Judith Herzberg's play Ledermacht, or The Wedding Party, which I'm reading out of Dutch Plays from Nick Hearn Books International. So this is an experimental play. It is stylistically experimental. It consists of a bunch of very short scenes, some of which slightly longer, some of which very, very short. I'd compare it to pointillism, right? Pointillism, the painting style in which the painting as a whole, the picture, the image, is created basically just out of dots of color rather than sort of solid brush strokes or sort of blending the paints to make a realistic depiction or a semi-realistic depiction of the subject. It's individual spots that, taken as a whole, create the image. It's a play of vignettes, basically. And one of the interesting things is, according to the sort of introductory note here, it was originally conceived as a loose-leaf volume where the order of scenes could be altered at will. And so even the structure of these short pointillistic scenes isn't set. It isn't required that they be done in this order. It's about using these small bits and pieces, these tiny elements, to create an overall picture. And the order of that isn't crucial. So what the play is basically about, it takes place at the wedding reception of Leah and Nico. They are a couple, but they are each divorced, and their previous spouses are here. Alexander, who is Leah's first husband, and Dory, who is Nico's first wife. Their family members are here, and there's all these different tensions. Everything is... Nobody quite gets along. So there's all these sort of anxieties, all these conflicts bubbling just below the surface. And it's played out, again, through these very, very short scenes, very sort of staccato almost in tone and pace. So I'll read you just the first couple, maybe the first three. So the stage description: series of small rooms or balconies off a larger room which is not visible. A wedding reception is in progress in the large room. People wander into the small rooms to be alone for a moment or to have a private conversation. The house belongs to Simon and Ada, Leah's parents. First scene involves Ada and Alexander. Alexander's standing in silence. Ada joins him. Ada says, "What are you doing?" Alexander, "I'm singing." Ada, "Really? Instead of what?" "Oh, I'm sorry." End of scene. Second scene, Nico and Hans, later Simon. Nico, "Have you got them?" Hans, carrying flowers, says, "Of course." Nico unwraps them and says, "No." Hans says, "No?" Hans asks, "No." Nico says, "Impossible, exactly the same as the ones I gave Dory." Hans says, "I don't believe it." Nico says, "Damn it, you'll have to go and change them." Hans says, "They're camellias. I bought something completely different for Dory." Nico says, "What then?" Hans says, "They can't be." Nico says, "They are, exactly the same." He takes a photo from his wallet. "Look." Hans says, "That sort of thing doesn't bother Dory. Actually, I think it's rather apt. The same flowers for the same occasion. After all, you don't have anything different to offer her. You're the same man with the same everything. I don't see how it's going to be the flowers that make the difference. Why don't you buy your own damn flowers?" Nico says, "Next time I certainly will." Exit Hans, enter Simon. Nico says, "What do you think, Simon? Should you give your second wife the same flowers you gave your first, out of a kind of honesty, or completely different ones, to show that everything is going to be different?" Simon says, "Now there you have a problem that's quite beyond my experience, I'm glad to say." End of scene. Scene 3. Juffy and Dory, later Hans. Juffy says to Dory, Daddy's just coming. The dog's still in the car. You know, he licks my toes. I sometimes say, why don't you ever lick my toes? But then Svart says, what about women starting to lick men's toes? But you know, men have such sweaty feet. Enter Hans. Hans says, Dory, can I ask you something? Jeffy says, off. Oh, I'm off. Hans says, Dory, you remember the flowers Nico gave you when you two got married? Dory says, yes. Camellias? Hans says, would you mind terribly if... Dory says, look, I know Nico. We would hardly expect him to suddenly have imagination, could we? So that's the first three scenes. They go very, very quickly. They are very, very short. And again, no individual scene gives us much information about the characters, but when we take them as a whole, we start to get these pictures of the different conflicts between these characters, the different tensions, anxieties, the things that worry them. And one of the recurring elements, Herzberg was I think she's now dead. Herzberg was Jewish in a country that didn't exactly participate in the Holocaust, but didn't exactly not participate in the Holocaust. The Netherlands surrendered to Nazi Germany. The Dutch government, the official Dutch government, went into exile, etc., etc. Things did not go well for Dutch Jews, put it that way. And so almost all of the characters in this play, their lives have in some way been shaped by their Jewishness, by the Holocaust, by choices they had to make to survive the Holocaust, choices others made to try and help them survive the Holocaust, etc., etc. And we get this played out. So I'm going to read you just one portion of one scene, and this is one of the longer scenes, but I think it sort of represents this sort of ongoing anxiety about Holocaust and the hunting of Jews by the German military, the Gestapo, the SS, etc. So Ada is telling this story. Simon and Ada are telling this story. So Simon sort of pushes it because he says that Ada had gone out. She'd gone out shopping, taking the tram, but she came back in a police car. Basically, she freaked out on this tram, and so they sort of tell this story. Simon says, what happened? Ada was sitting in the tram, clutching her ticket, duly paid for, of course. Ada says, suddenly two of those men got on, in uniforms, with boots. They were speaking German. Nico asks, German? Ada says, maybe I'm just imagining that. Maybe they weren't speaking German, but I thought it was German, so I got off. At least that's what I wanted to do, but I had to wait till the next stop. But I thought, at least that's what I think now. I thought I wasn't allowed to be on the tram at all. We weren't allowed, but we did anyway. But at that time, there weren't those awful trap doors that you can't open, that only open when you get to a stop. Horrible doors, especially when you're caught in a traffic jam. You can't get out, even if you're in a hurry. Even if you're really close, they don't let you get out. And you can hardly breathe. So I tried to force them open. I stuck my umbrella between them and I thought, I'll wrench them open. I can always get another brolly. But those men with the boots thought that was suspicious. Do I look like a fare dodger? So they grabbed me. I screamed. I shouldn't have, but I got so scared when they grabbed me. God, I was confused, but what do you expect? Two men suddenly grab your arms, the door won't open, I can't get out. I don't remember anything more. But when I looked in the larder, it turned out I still had 8 packets of ginger. I'm an old hoarder. Silly, eh? And then we get this odd bit following this. Reed says, and did they apologize? Ada says, who? Why? Reed says, the ticket inspectors. Ada says, goodness, no, why should they? They were just doing their jobs. Laughing. Beffelist Beffel. I don't know what that means, to be honest. I didn't look it up. Sorry. But they were nice, very sweet boys. At any rate, the policemen were nice. The inspectors must have handed me over to the police. Simon says they almost got an invitation for today. Ada says I did invite them. They were such nice boys, and they brought me all the way home. So again, there is this sort of strange... There's this strange element in which the events of the Holocaust and the events of Dutch, not collaboration per se, but like the Dutch occupation by the Nazis sort of hangs over this group of people, not all of whom are Jews, but many of them are. And this becomes the sort of shaping force that underlies a lot of the tensions and resentments and anxiety, particularly between some of the family members. But the other thing that we get in this play that sort of brings us back to that is we have these scenes where the cast will sort of read out information from pamphlets, instructions, things like this, to Jewish parents who were giving up their children to go to Gentile homes to try and hide them from the Nazis, or to Gentiles who were taking in Jewish children to, again, try to hide them from the Nazis. So one, for instance, is one thing that the cast reads out, and originally it was performed collectively, I think, is 10 recommendations for prospective parents. And it says, I'll read you just a little bit of it. If the child you are about to receive cannot yet talk, you can ignore points 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. If the child you are about to receive is already talking, the following points must be carefully observed. 1. The child's own name must be changed. Its own original name, as well as the names of original parents, grandparents, etc., must be forgotten. The new name should in no way resemble the original name. When choosing a new name, it should be ensured that this name is not based on or similar to the name of a person known to the child. 2. A new address should be invented. It should be ascertained, A, that this address exists in reality, B, whether the occupants of this address have or have not had any connection with the child or with the original parents of the child. In the event of the latter, the address may not under any circumstances be used. And it sort of goes on from here. Basically, it's about destroy this child, every facet of this child's identity, and replace it with a fiction in order to protect their life. And we know that at least some of the characters in this play were actually sort of subject to this, right? Where their parents were being transported to the camps, and the children, the children, whatever it was, were sort of given up to attempt to protect them. And so again, this becomes a big source of resentment for those characters. We've also got these sort of resentments of Jewish characters for non-Jewish characters about the sort of broader guilt of the Holocaust in the Netherlands. Again, not exactly cooperation in it, but the fact that it occurred in the Netherlands.